So, X is the latest horror film by Ty West. Well, actually, we actually haven't had a horror film from Ty West in quite some time. It's been a while. I think it's almost been like not quite a decade, but it feels like it's been. And he returns with this kind of like very retro slasher, and wow, it's this is like everything that you kind of like want out of a horror out of a slasher film, and then it pulls it off so brilliantly. So the premise of X is that it's the late 1970s, and you have basically a strip club is seeking to get into adult filmmaking. They want to expand into making porno films, and their latest production is called has the wonderful title of The Farmer's Daughter. So they go off to shoot this porno film on an actual farm. They've convinced a couple to let them use their part of their farm. They're gonna stay in one of like their little cabins off to the side next to the barn, to let them stay there and shoot their porno film. The problem is that their manager, Wayne, played by Martin Henderson, has not told the couple that they're going to shoot a porno film there. And the elderly couple are very much like, like very heavily Christian. They don't like outsiders, and they kind of very much look down on young people. And the other issue is that Wayne hasn't told his filming crew or the actors that he didn't tell the old people that they're filming a porno film there. So they kind of got to keep it on the down low, but that of course, it's not going to be long before like the elderly couple figure out that something's going wrong on the farm. And of course, like the elderly couple have their issues not only with just like young people, but like I think the passage of time as well, because the old woman, I think her name is like Pearl. She's basically like, she spent her youth just like having a lot of fun and is craving, something more. Basically, she wants sex. And the fact that she has all these young people just outside her house who are filming sex acts just kind of like drives her nuts. Like just, with this very much the sense of like envy, that she eventually, after a lot of like build up and brooding, which is like perfect tension that mounts here, she eventually goes on a killing spree. And the first kill she has is brilliant. The way she kills like the first person in front of like the truck with the lights on, just stabbing him while like the blood goes on the headlights and the lighting changes, while you have like the 70s rock and the radio blazing in the background. Oh, just perfect stuff there. And the thing is, like, yeah, on that level, it's a pretty standard slasher film. Bunch of like outsiders come to a farm and get more than what they bargained for, and they end up getting killed on the farm. Now, I'm going to go into like the deeper aspects, but before that, I got to mention West's direction here, which is amazing. I love the way he starts off the film by just showing the massacre and basically like giving you like a tease of what's to come, and you have like that silent sheriff just walking around there. The sheriff played by James Galen, who just has this amazing presence, just walks onto the scene, just observes everything. I also love how he's kind of like the bookend of this film. Like you start with him and then the film ends with him, and his reaction is kind of like J.K. Simmons in Burn After Reading, where he basically kind of is like, what did we learn here? I don't know, some messed up stuff happened, didn't it? The good news is, though, like I think there's more to it than just a bunch of like messed up kills happening, which I will cover. The kills are amazing. They're fantastic. But there's I think a lot of people have picked up on this. The best scene in the film, I think, is the scene where the crew is all sitting around, like, they've completed a day of filming, and they're all sitting around like the fire in the cabin. They're all having beers, and the mic operator, who they call like Church Mouse, because she's like kind of like she's a Christian woman. She asks why Wayne would let his girlfriend act in these films where she has sex with other men. And they talk about how, sex and love are not the same thing. And then Church Mouse is basically, oh, I want to act in the film then, if that's the case. And her boyfriend, who's the camera operator and basically thinks of himself as an auteur director, states that, well, no, you can't be in the film because, and he tries to find an excuse here because he doesn't want her to be in the film, is that you can't be in the film because it would mess up the flow. We've already written the script, and it wouldn't make sense to have another character in here. It would be too subversive. But then Church Mouse argues that, well, no, actually, subversion makes for good films because remember Psycho? Psycho surprised you. The main character who you think is the main character dies, like, very early in the film. And his argument is, well, we're not shooting a horror film here. We're shooting a porno film. And then, of course, that's the moment where you kind of go, like, where you kind of have, like, that Pirates of the Caribbean's moment, where it's like, you best start believing in horror films because you're in one. And it's that great little meta commentary of, like, well, yeah, like, horror films do have, like, this little bit of subversion to them. And I love that dynamic because, like, for, like, the first half of the film, you have this buildup and this tension where you can sense, like, horror is coming, but it mostly focuses on, like, the sex scenes for that. Like, most of the first half is spent just with all the porno scenes. I also love the very, like, kind of, like, cheeky way they try to find humor in it. Like, at one point, they stop at a gas station and they try to find, like, the most erotic way to shoot their main character filling up with gas. With Kid Cudi in the film, who's basically filling up with gas, trying to make it look sexual. He probably has some of the simpler, but I think the funnier lines in the film. But then, of course, after much tension was brewing, especially, I love the scene where there's a skinny dipping scene and you see an alligator in the water, and the alligator's like this close to chomping on her. It's like, oh, okay, perfect tension. We know that alligator is going to munch someone later. But then once you get to the kills, they're all brilliant. You get pitchforks in the eyes, you get people stabbed in the throat, they get their guts slashed out, they get their fingers broken, they get shot in the face, just out of nowhere. Like, they'll just die suddenly. And I love that perfect building of tension where you think a character is going to die here, but no, they let it linger just a little bit longer, when you're on pins and needles saying, when's it going to happen? Like, I think at one point, one of the characters was led into the woods and shot, but you don't know when it's going to happen. And there's a moment like, okay, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. When's it going to happen? And you're just like, oh God, is it going to happen? And then it actually does. Very, very brutal, very gory. Especially, like, I'm trying not to reveal too much here, but the basement scene where she finds the person tied up and they pan down and show the carnage below the belt, and it's just, ooh, very grotesque, very, shameless with, like, like the nudity and the sex. But again, like I said, there's a little bit more for your brain to munch on here than just how cool the kills are. Just because I think the focus on, like, growing older, like, they do focus on that a lot here, and about fearing that your life is over if you don't have your youth, and that your youth might be squandered if you don't, pursue everything that you can with it, I think is an interesting angle. I don't feel like it's explored as much as it can be, but the thing is, there's that post-credit scene where it teases a much different film, which I feel might go more into that. I'm kind of interested to see if Ty West pursues that type of film and what that will end up looking like. But that being said, like, I don't want to make it sound like it's a Marvel movie where I'm looking forward to another film that will fill in the gaps, because X on its own is an amazing retro slasher film. If you're in the mood, like, if the latest if the latest version of Scream has you craving, more classic slasher films instead of these very high-minded horror films about, like, trauma and trying to get over grief with stuff like Midsommar and The Babadook. This is a great throwback. Great retro slasher film that still has a little bit of brains, before they spill the brains all over the floor with, like, guts and all that, which it does beautifully. It's a, I guess, like, the easiest way to describe it is, like, it's a horror film that can, like, have its bloody cake and eat it too. And I love it. It's one of my favorite horror films of this year.